So Fast X is a surprisingly complicated tale. Your setup is functionally the same as all your previous Fast and Furious movies. The gang is having a barbecue and drinking Corona Light, and they got 3 bottles of A1 steak sauce on the table because the movie's sponsored by A1. Dominic Toretto is teaching his son how to drive. Lil B, he calls him, for named after Brian, who's Paul Walker's character in the franchise. When suddenly something happens, right? An op goes amiss at the agency where they all work on the sly because they're all super spies now. And
this real quick, this sounds like you're writing a script outline. By the way,
it doesn't sound real,
and you're not. Like, these are literally what they call them in the movie.
Yes, of course. And it turns out a former character who was involved in the op from Fast 5 in 2011 when Paul Walker and Vin Diesel ripped a bank vault out of a wall and drove it down the street with 2 souped up Mustangs. It turns out Jason Momoa is the son of a drug kingpin in Brazil, I think is where that happened. And he was there on the day, even though you didn't see him in the movie, but they CGI him in. And he's so pissed that they stole his money and iced his dad back in 2011. Now he's back, baby. And in a surprisingly Joker-esque turn, he's always 5 steps ahead of him, and nobody can catch this international man of mystery, Jason Momoa. And his whole lean is to make Dominic Toretto suffer for his crimes and the things that he's done before ultimately taking away his family, his friends, and everything that's important to him, which of course is his family. The movie is Fast X. It is a shockingly long watch at 2.5 hours. And I think, like I said, if you're a fan of the old ones, you'll like this one. I think if you didn't like the old ones, you're going to be real split on it. Andy, what did you think?
So I've seen a handful of these, and we did go see Fast 9. I saw Fast 9 in D-Box, getting thrown around the theater.
Huge flex.
And I actually, like, I really enjoyed it because it's ridiculous and it's fun and it's a good time. But this movie is not those things. Somehow they have this formula of what they do well, and they decided to not really do it. Like what has worked in these movies in the past are the ridiculous like stunts and the long driving action sequences, the camaraderie and the joking and teasing back and forth between the team. And we lost all that in this movie, and I was bored out of my mind. I looked down and I was like, we're barely an hour into this. We still have an hour and a half. What, like, I'm losing my mind. There's so much that's just not there. The action driving stuff isn't near as fun as it's been in past films. Our team gets split up very early on in the movie, and then you don't have that team camaraderie going on. The plot's all over the place. People are fast traveling all over the world. I mean, it's got problems. Like, this is probably the first one of these that I really haven't enjoyed, because I've seen whichever one has the endless runway. I think that might be 7, maybe 8. A few of the other ones, like they're generally a fun time, and this is the first time that I've really not had a good time seeing this.
Yes, Fast X is struggling under the weight of its own like baggage. It trying to insert every character who has ever been featured in the Fast and Furious franchise ever in this one movie, and it does not have enough time to do it all. So you get this weird mishmash of characters getting split up and sent to different parts of the world and running into other characters from the franchise for just like 2 scenes. I mean, they got everybody in here, and all of them are in the trailer. Jason Statham is in here for like 2 scenes. Helen Mirren is in here for like a scene. Like, you just blasting through it. And meanwhile, you've got your primary conflict, like Dominic Toretto trying to track down Jason Momoa's villain, and Jason Momoa seemingly always staying ahead of Dominic Toretto, which is like fine, but doesn't result in enough actual like driving action. And that's probably the biggest offender of this. Like, the car action sucks. There's like 2 good car driving scenes. And that's kind of it. There's a couple others, but they're not like good. That's the thing. Like, and I think like good Fast and Furious action has to have like good movement outside of the cars. Like it's got to be more than just like people looking through their windows at each other and like scowling, right? Like you got to have something rad happen, like driving a Ferrari out of a skyscraper and into another one, or yeah, like ripping a vault out of a wall and having it scream down the street and take out 8 cop cars. Like that kind of stuff is what works best. And like not only does it have poor movement with its characters, it's got poor movement with the cars. And like it just makes for a really long slog.
Yeah, so why don't we start with our plot? So because this will kind of help illustrate all these points. We start off with this the agency has an operation in Rome, and they literally call the agency the agency.
I couldn't believe it when they said it in the movie. I thought it was like a joke line at first, and like no, and I saw Fast 9, and even I had forgotten like how silly it is.
I mean, it's like you might as well start calling him the protagonist has, it's like
right.
Tenet, the protagonist. But they end up in Rome, and turns out it's like they've been betrayed and made to look like terrorists, and now they're public enemy number one, and they get scattered across the globe. Half the team bails out of Rome, ends up in London. Letty gets captured and arrested and sent to a prison in Antarctica. Vin Diesel somehow ends up back in L.A. Or no, he hasn't been. He goes to Rio. That's right.
Rio,
Part of it's in. So we're all over the place. But then it gets, and there's a big exciting like car thing that happens at the end of Act 1 when all this happens and the team gets split up. But then it's just so boring after that. We never really see everyone get back together. There's a couple of action fight scenes for some reason, but we don't see anyone getting into a car for like another hour, and it's just like it's mind-numbingly boring trying to get there.
I think a big problem with that is like the pairings, which characters are paired with which others and which settings. Yeah, part of our group is spun off into like London, which is kind of most of our like miscreant characters, like Ludacris and Tyrese. They're fine over there doing their thing. You got John Cena on babysitting duty, which sucks. They give him the kid in this movie. He's got to take care of little B. And like,
my man was done wrong. My man was done dirty.
Yeah, Cena is like one of the best actors in this franchise, and like you're just gonna like, okay, sure. Michelle Rodriguez is handed off to Charlize Theron, and they're fine, like they're both scowling and arguing with each other. Neat, fine. And meanwhile, like Vin Diesel's left to face off with Jason Momoa's kind of character, who's basically operating from the shadows from this movie. And like Diesel, once again, is like somehow the least charismatic character out of anybody in the script. He's the most boring.
Worst person
He's the
on
most
screen.
Dry. Everybody acts better than him. And it's great because he's given every cool line. Almost every character that interacts with Diesel has a feed line where they say something to him that cues him up to say like the big profound thing about family in the moment. Or he says something funny about how, I don't know, some cheeky joke that's stupid that like everybody's forced to laugh at. And this comes at like a functional problem with the script. Remember, Justin Lin, who was the guy who basically turned this whole series around following Tokyo Drift. I think he did Tokyo Drift. He left shooting Fast X days into production. He has done all of these up to this point. He has like shaped this franchise into what it is. And he said he got so pissed trying to argue with Vin Diesel. There was a door slammed and phone calls and people were madder than hell that he left the production. He bailed on the whole thing. And they hired Louis Letterier, who is the director of the Transporter series, Now You See Me, Marvel's Incredible Hulk. They hired him to pick it up. And he does a fine job like cobbling it all together. But God, like it's like he has to work around how dry Diesel is in these movies. And Diesel is not, it's funny because Diesel is acting this. Like he's not actually that dry of a dude in real life, I don't think. He put out an album, which is fine. I've seen him in interviews. Like he's relatively more uppity than he is in these movies. Like the way he plays Dominic Toretto is just so flat. Like I just don't care, And then, of course, there's Jason Momoa, who is actually really pleasant, I thought, in this movie. Do you want to talk about his kind of turn as a villain here?
Jason Momoa is having so much fun, and it's funny because I thought he looked kind of lame in the trailers, but they really are downplaying because he's incredibly flamboyant. I feel like they made him very gay, very very out. And he's like the Joker, and he's having a great time, and it's one of those things that where he's like always a step ahead, and it's just annoying. He's like, oh, you thought you escaped that trap? That actually put you into the other trap that I had ready. Like,
That's right.
there's so much of that, which is it's kind of lame. But he's good. He's having he's having a great mustache twirling moment, and some kind of psychotic things that are very, like I said, they have him in purple at some point, and I was like, this is very Joker inspired.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, funny enough, John Cena, I feel, is doing a Batman audition through part of this.
Yeah, I think so too. Momoa's also got like the best costuming in the movie. Like he's wearing all these like breezy outfits, and he'll come on from another scene. He's got like a jacket on, and then he'll have a costume change. We're wearing something else. He got his hair up at one point. Like everybody else is just like fine, it's like Fast and Furious street clothes. Like, and it for what it's worth, like it is nice to see the Fast and Furious series like run a different direction with the villain that's not just like cold hard badass like Charlize Theron or John Cena or Dwayne Johnson or Jason Statham. All these people were that role. They were just like the flat two-tone I'm a jerk kind of character. And that actually is in here a little bit. Goes to Alan Ritchson, who plays the head of the agency. Is formerly in Blue Mountain State, where he's very funny in that show. And he did Jack Reacher on Amazon. Now he's in this is kind of the guy picking up the slack where Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody left off. These are real things. Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody is a real character.
It's hilarious. Scott Eastwood's character is called Little Nobody.
Is he really? God, I forgot Scott Eastwood was in this. Yeah, I am impressed at like the number of people they managed to get on set for these things and to get to return to roles. And like in that way, that's a nice thing. It's like how I feel watching a Wes Anderson movie when like Bill Murray pops up and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot he's in this. Like Owen Wilson pops up, like, oh yeah, I forgot he is in this. It happens like 8 times in this movie. Like somebody will show up and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that person's in here. But it does not help the drama, which ultimately like is really slow. Between the action, you just don't care. Like it just feels real dry, and it's building towards something bigger. It's got this like Avengers Infinity War kind of feel to it, where like they're not really going to resolve the plot in this movie because everybody's talked about this being a part 1. So like that's kind of lame too. It's not, the film you're watching is not really building to resolution, which is not awesome.
Yeah, I did want to mention. I'll get to John Cena in a second. Brie Larson is she in any of the other ones, or is this her first? I
couldn't even tell you. And we saw Fast 9, and I don't even remember.
I think she is also part of the Mr. Nobody family. I think that's where, again, she also works for the agency. It just kind of shows up in really fabulous outfits whenever she's needed. But yeah, I did want to talk about John Cena some more. He gets put on the Lone Wolf and Cub mission, has to road trip with the kid. I feel bad for it because it's like it's the least amount of action. It's just you're wasting Cena. Like you've wasted Cena in this movie for sure.
You've got him acting solo opposite a child actor. Like, come on. Like, you're never gonna get anything cool going on there. Everybody's like yawning and getting up and going to the bathroom, right? Like nobody checking their watch. Like get a refill on the popcorn, honey. Those are the moments where, like, you really don't care. Which is a bummer. I'm running out of things to say about it. I good needle drops. I give it credit. Like every Fast and Furious soundtrack is a great gym playlist on Spotify. Like lots of fun music, decent driving, but it's just like I really do feel like this series is reaching what should be its end. And Diesel, for the love of God, can't let go because it's all he's got in his life, and it's sad.
I do feel like
yeah,
he did at least get in better shape in this movie. He was a little tubby in Fast 9. He did slim down a little bit. Started hitting the weight. He definitely looks a lot better. But man, I was gonna say the middle of the film has a big street race section because they have to remember to get back to street racing every now and then.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
So, even though it's kind of turned into Mission Impossible now. But yeah, they you have the classic street racing. That's where we see Daniela Melchior, who was also in Guardians of the Galaxy, make her debut in this. Who is of course the long lost sister of someone that I forget. People are constantly popping up with unknown relatives in this universe.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It feels like this series has really reached like peak vapid. You know what I mean? Like peak vanity. Like, our stars are never breaking a sweat. You know, they're never working for it. Like they're just kind of manufactured on screen. They remind me like the Transformers. Like they're each just this cast of like individual caricatures that are like, haha, Fast and Furious, I drive a car and pay me. And I'm just surprised at how many people still turn out for this. It's the same as like the Jurassic World Dominion crowd. Like
Yeah.
that theater was full of people who were on their phones half the movie and were filming part of it for Snapchat so they could like roll it into other people viewing their lives through the lens of social media. And like in that way, like that's what Fast and Furious feels like it's become. Like there's no substance here. It's just like just crank it out. It's formulaic. It'll make money. You know, that's the thing. And like if anything worked in these movies, it was at least the damn action, right? Like at least I would see something cool happen with a car. And even Fast 10 doesn't have enough of that, like, to save it, I think. I hope whatever's next is bigger.
There were moments where I thought the screen looked 100% animated. Like, this looks like I'm watching a cartoon.
Oh, for sure.
Because of everything that's happening.
Yeah. There's bad green screen behind people, like, when they're at their stupid barbecue. Like, it's really obvious. Like, you guys are on a set. Like, none of this is... You know, that's a green wall behind you. It's not it's not like a picturesque view of Los Angeles. You couldn't be bothered to go out and shoot it. No. We're just gonna shoot that on studio, you know, stage 8. We'll do that scene on a Tuesday. Like it just feels like so much less than like what it used to be. I mean, for God's sake, Tyrese's character as a gold Lambo at one point in the scene. I don't think you ever even get like a full shot of it just driving. Camera's just cutting around it, switching to other stuff. I'm just like, show me the cars. let me just see the cars. That would be cool. And like, it can't even get that right. You know, like if it can't focus on characters who are too out of place, like to fit anywhere, and it can't have a good plot. Like, I don't know. At least give me that. At least Jason Momoa is having fun. You know, like at least he had a good time. Good for him.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts on this for recommendations?
No, I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Fast X?
Only to hardcore fans of the franchise. If you're someone who's seen every single movie and you rewatch them and you're there on day one, definitely for you, catch up with the rest of the crew. For anyone else who's not really interested, I would say hard pass. Don't even wait for it while on streaming because it's so long. It's the full 2.5 hours. Cutting a half hour out would have helped it a lot, but it's not even fun anymore. It's not even like stupid popcorn fun.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And if you're a big fan of the series, like you'll probably enjoy it. And I don't listen for all my railing on how terrible it is. Like I want to be clear, like this is not something that just fell out of like the franchise. It has been slowly progressing in this direction, like with more character focus and more. God, there's a ton of characters and witty dialogue. Like, if you are a fan of that, if you have watched up to this point and you're invested, you're probably going to think this is a good time, right? Go to the theater, get your phone out. Don't worry about anybody else. Text the whole movie. Who cares? And you're going to love Fast X. But like if you fell off this series, like most people I think have, and you've only seen like a handful of them and haven't seen the last like 3 of them, there's nothing here for you. Like go back to the older movies. You'll like them more. Maybe as a part of a whole, Fast X will look better in the rear view. Like maybe, I don't know, Fast 11 or Fast 12 or whatever comes out and it makes it feel like more of a complete package. But for what we have here, like this is just half of like an unsatisfying something. Like it's just not that. It's just not there. It's not there. And that's Fast X. Maybe they'll get Justin Lin back for the next one. Maybe they could pay him enough and lock down a script that Vin Diesel's not going to mess with to give his character all the good lines. With that, we should move on to our middle segment. Andy, what do we call this?
It's time for the trailer park.